Okay, so apart from just solid colours that we use for face painting, there's also split cakes that are quite popular to use, and they make blending colours is in so easy and so quick. So they're definitely a favourite. If you obviously you would have seen a lot of face painting YouTube clips out there, you'll see that a lot of people use these split cakes, fun strokes, whatever you want to call them. They come in different sizes, so you get these smaller tubs, and then you also get these bigger ones. I'll start off with the ordinary ones. So say this is just a red, a pink and a white. So there are a few colours, and these people that make these face paints, they actually craft these themselves. So they're quite good and they're just so efficient to use. I'll show you an example. And same thing, they're activated by water. Now, some people like to use their spritzer bottle to spritz onto the cake before they work their brush through it to pick up the paint. I personally don't like to use that method because you could overspray the cake and it can become a drippy mess if you do have too much water on the split cakes. And then all the colours sort of join in together and bleed in together. There is a good fix on how to fix that if you do get into that pickle, but we want to avoid that, obviously. So what I like to do is I like to dip this is just an angled brush, and we're just going to draw do a couple of love hearts and maybe a rose. So I'll just dip my flat angled brush into my clean water. Now I'm just going to dip it onto so I've got in the introduction video, I've got I tell you that I've got a little cotton liner on the bottom of my kit which I use to dip the excess water from my paint. So I'll use this hand towel for an example. So I dip most of the excess paint off there, so then my brush isn't too loaded with water and it's not going to create a big mess here on my split cake. So what I want to do, I want to pick up the pink and the light pink and the white. So I'm just going to grab my brush and put it through there and slide it across. Don't be scared to load it up too much. So don't be scared to press right down. The idea is to press right down and get as much paint as possible to the bottom of the farrel. So I'll do a cute little love heart with this. So now, because I didn't put too much water on my brush nor my cake, I've got that creamy consistency that I'm after to give me a good coverage and no leakage. So as you can see, by putting the brush onto the skin and bringing it down and rolling it into a half circle with a tip down the bottom, we're able to create this really pretty swirl effect. We can make a love heart, and it just gives it such a lovely light feel, and it just blends, and it looks like you would have taken a lot longer to create this love heart, but you haven't blended any colors at all. All you've done is used these magical split cakes, which are amazing in my opinion. So that's using an angled flat brush. You can also do this love heart with a flat brush. I'll show you all how to do all this and how to use your brush, hold your brush, and where you should press down and pick up, etc. But for now, I'm showing you how the paints glide on and what they look like with split cakes. Now I can also use a sponge, applying it this way in order to create a rainbow. Sometimes I like to use a sponge instead of a brush when my brush is all loaded up and I need something clean, quick. I will just grab a ordinary sponge. So this is just a normal face painting sponge, which I just got from the local online store. So I'm going to spritz it with some water, work the water through the sponge by pinching it. I'm going to put the tip at the base of the cake and just work my way up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down to grab as much rainbow colour as I need. And there we have it on the sponge. So we could just go ahead and create a really pretty rainbow. And these look super cute on a child's forehead with a couple of clouds on either side. That's another way that you can use your split cakes with this size. And it just makes life easier when you're blending colours in. So I'll put that into my dirty sponge bag where I'm going to clean them out. I'm going to load up my number 4 round brush and complete this rainbow. So as you can see, I am working my brush through the paint to create a creamy consistency. And once I feel that I've picked up enough paint on my brush and it's not dripping, I'm going to go ahead and draw those clouds. Blues are quite prominent, as well as greens and aquas. They're highly pigmented. So there's a lot of pigment in these paints. So it's best to go over them with white again, because your white, because of the wetness of the brush, it will pick up the colours underneath. So it's best just to go over it again, and that will do the job. Okay, so now we have these split cakes, which are fantastic for rainbow butterflies and mixing all those pretty colours together to create a really nice girly design, or a unicorn design, anything fantasy or fairy tale-y. This is really pretty to use. It's called Fairy Floss from Tag. There's so many varieties of split cakes like these, but I do recommend that you just try a few. It doesn't hurt. It's always great to experiment with different colours and brands and things. So what we'll do now, we're going to use a petal sponge. We'll go through the sponges in detail in our sponges and stencils module. So I've just wet it again with my spritzer and just made sure that I'm working that water through the sponge just by giving it a nice pinch. And for this, I have the option of picking up all colours, but slightly. So I'm just going to pick some of the purple and some of the pink up the top, because it doesn't really cover the span of the whole split cake. If we were to use a half sponge, we can pick up all of the paints and then we can really work it. So just going to work my way through here for this, and this is how we use our split cakes for dabbing on pretty colours. So there we have all of the colours onto this petal cake. Super vibrant, super pretty. This is probably one of my favourite ones. And we're just going to dab, tap, 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 tap. So that's how we use our sponge. Just stipple, 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 stipple. Go, we have another petal. Okay. Now with our split cakes, it's good to remember when we're using sponges for them, it's good to just remember that we don't wet our sponges too much. We keep them nice and sticky. So that's how we would go around. Normally when we use sponges, we make a basis for a design, and then we go ahead and use our brushes just to modify it and add something extra to it. By using these half sponges, we can also pick up absolutely all of the colors of the split cakes. So I'm just making my way through the cake. So sliding that part of the sponge from side to side, and make sure that you really press in there. So you're picking up the colors, picking up all of them. So there you go. You have some of this pretty rainbow color. So we can use this now and just stipple it onto the skin like this, making sure to press firmly and stipple. As you can see now, we have picked up most of the colors there, and all of the pinks and all of the purple. If you want to extend colors, you can also use the tip. There's the pink loaded on the tip, and if I want to extend some more pink, I'll do that by doing that, or stipple on some more purple up the top. So that's what we use our split cakes for. They're just so effective to create color blending in your face painting. Now we can also pick up all of the colors of these smaller split cakes or fun strokes by using a inch brush, which is very wide, that covers a large area, or we can use a 3/4 brush, 3/4 of an inch brush, which is also a 12, and that way we can pick up most of the paint on our split cake. So to give you an example, this is the inch brush. I hardly use this inch brush because children's faces are quite small most of the time. So I'm just dabbing it into the cotton so it's not too wet. Children's faces are normally very small, so sometimes this brush is way too big for their faces in order to create a petal or something like that. Now, it's quite dry there. I've dabbed it back onto the cotton to pick up some water, but it's still quite dry. So I'm going to slightly dip the paint and just dip it into the water ever so slightly, and I'm picking up just a little bit of water, and that helps me to pick up a lot more paint than what I had. So loading it up, and it's still quite dry. So it's good to know you're always going to get a different result with each brush. So the bigger the brush, the more water you need, obviously, to retain the water and pick up the colors. But it's about getting that right, the right consistency. So I'm just dipping it in ever so slightly again and working it through the brush like this. So don't be afraid to really get in there and pick up the colors. Now I think that will do us for now. So as you can see, I could also paint this rainbow onto my hand by using a bigger brush, not so much a sponge. So the sponge obviously is to do a half circle, to do a rainbow, or to do a dash very quickly. And the sponge obviously picks up a lot more water, so it picks up a lot more paint. So I find that there's less mess and there's less calculation of how much water you should be dipping your brush in with. So they're all very different. It's good to practice with each brush and just see how they all work and get used to how they all work. So then in a speeded up environment like a festival or an event where you have to get through faces quickly, you know exactly what to do. So I've just dipped it into water. It's quite wet, so I'm dabbing it onto the cloth. And now I'm using the 3/4 brush and I'm picking up all of that beautiful rainbow cake. This one's a pretty global colours one. It's called Summer Crush, and it's very vibrant and pretty. So Now using the 3/4 brush, achieve exactly the same result. If you do ever get into a scenario where, you've just got too much paint onto your split cakes and it's just a disaster. So say, for instance, you are on the job and this happens. So you've got a lot of water on your brush and a lot of water on your paint and your split cakes. Oh, look at that. That's just a drippy mess. So best thing to do here is get the back of a half sponge, and that will pick up the paint. It'll just pick up the water and the drippy paint that's just been bothering your cake. But if you see a little bit of a disturbances of, say, the greens in the different colours or the other colours in the different colours and they're all running into each other, we'll just grab a wet wipe. So you'll always have these handy. And we're just going to run it through the middle of the cake, and that will pick up any other colours that's running into other colours. We can also use split cakes to make pretty petals as well. So I'm grabbing a filbert brush, which is a rounded edge brush. It's a lot thicker than normal. Dab that onto there. And say if I wanted to create a petal, I'll pick up the colours from this pretty split cake. Purples, pinks and turquoises and whites just do such a pretty effect. So if I put my brush down like this and press it down and then move it to the side, I get a little petal. So if I continue that, get some cute little petals like that. So there you've got so many little things to create with the split cakes. They are a lot of fun to experiment with. Try picking up different colours with different brushes. So say, for instance, you might want to just pick up the red and the maroon, or the maroon and the orange in this cake, just like this. And say I just want to pick up these two colours. I'll just work my brush into the split cake, and there I can use them to make a flower. You can do all sorts of fun things with these. Do some pretty teardrops that are multicolored, so you've got just a bit of interest in your designs. So split cakes are great for blending colours. There's a lot of variety out there, so make sure that you head online and just check out what you have around your area in any local art store if they do sell face paints. I find that most paints are found online. So if you just head on to your search engine and Google, Bing, or wherever you go, and just type in face paints and whatever the name of your area is, you'll find, no doubt you'll find somewhere that stock all these amazing paints. Now, we always have to make sure that these paints, that you do buy the proper paints. They're hypoallergenic, they're FDA approved, and they're water-based, meaning that they're activated by water. Otherwise, you might irritate some child's skin and cause all sorts of headaches for yourself. And you want to look professional, so you want to advertise that you have professional face paints. You use the real thing. It's very important to get used to the consistency of the paints and play around with them. Just keep playing and always use your hands, your legs, borrow someone's head. Try to get used to using paints on faces, on skin, and you'll notice sometimes people buy practice heads. Now, this is the practice head that I use. You'll find that painting on a practice head is completely different to painting on skin. So when we're painting on skin, because this is water activated paints and your brush is mixed in with water and the paints, your skin will absorb a fair bit of paint when you're painting. Whereas on rubber or whatever material your practice head is made out of, it's not going to absorb as well. It's not going to absorb at all. It will come on differently. So it's best that if you're going to practice on a practice head, that you load up your brushes a lot more so than what you would with real skin. Having said that, they're fantastic to use. They're great for practicing. I have no dramas with using a practice head at all. The only thing that you need to worry about is staining your practice head. So best practice is to spray some hairspray on your practice head, let that dry, spray another layer of hairspray on your practice head, and then paint away. So when you're finished, just make sure that you don't leave the paint on the face for too long. And when you're washing it, make sure that you wash it with soapy water. So lather up the soap first. When you've got lathery soap on your hands, rub it around your face, and that will get rid of all of your things. For some reason, just putting it under a tap of water without the soap. So if you rinse it, then put the soap on, it's like the water activates the paints again, and it really sets into the head. So you're best off soapy water on your hand and rubbing it off, rinsing it. It'll come good as gold. Thanks for watching. If you got something out of this, make sure that you give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. If you have any face painting related questions or you need something that you need clarified, make sure you comment down below and I'll do my absolute best to share my knowledge with you in the next video. I'm on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. Don't forget to follow me so we don't miss each other for the next one. Until next time, happy painting.